Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into one of the most incredible processes out there, how a child develops. You think about first steps, first words, but what if I told you one of the biggest milestones is actually a child's first lie? So let me ask you something. When is lying a good thing? I know, it sounds like a trick question. We're all told honesty is the best policy, right? But when it comes to child development, the answer is pretty surprising. So the answer? When it's a kid who's doing it. Now, hold on. I'm not saying you should go out and teach your kids to lie. But that first little fib, that's actually a huge deal. It's a sign their brain just hit a major upgrade, unlocking this whole new way of thinking. It's a sign they're growing up, cognitively speaking. Okay, but to really wrap our heads around why something we see as bad is actually a good thing, we need a roadmap, a framework, right? A way to see a child's development not just as a bunch of random things happening, but as this whole interconnected system. And that roadmap, that framework, is all about looking at a kid's growth through 4 different lenses. We call them the domains of development. Think of them as 4 different windows into what's going on. They help us see the whole child and how all these different pieces connect. So what are they? First up, physical. Pretty straightforward, right? It's all about the body, muscles, senses, all that good stuff. Then there's cognitive. This is the brain stuff. Thinking, language, problem solving. Next, you've got social. This is all about how kids interact with everyone else. Friends, family, you name it. And last but not least, emotional. This is their inner world, their feelings, and crucially, how they learn to handle them. All right, let's dive into those first 2 a bit more. Physical and cognitive. I kind of like thinking of these 2 together as a child's basic toolkit. The fundamental gear they need to start interacting with and figuring out the world. Now, one of the big questions in this whole field is how all this happens. Like, is it a slow, steady process, kind of like walking up a ramp, where things just gradually get better over time? Or is it more like climbing a staircase with these sudden, huge jumps in ability? Think about it. One day, a kid's not walking, and then boom, they're taking their first steps. Well, the really cool thing is, it's both. Some things are gradual, like a ramp, and other things happen in these amazing, distinct stages, like steps. And some of this stuff is just universal. It happens to pretty much everyone. And here's a wild fact for you. Get ready for this. Did you know we're all born with our adult teeth already inside our skulls? Yeah, just hiding in there waiting. It's a little creepy, I know, but it's a perfect example of how some parts of our development are just hardwired into the system. Okay, so you've got physical things like teeth that are universal, but some of the biggest leaps are happening in the brain, in that cognitive toolkit. And one of those leaps is the absolute key to solving our little mystery about lying. So how does that brain toolkit connect back to a kid telling a fib? Well, it all boils down to one absolutely crucial cognitive skill. And that skill has a name: theory of mind. Sounds kind of fancy, right? But the idea is actually super simple. It's that aha moment when a kid realizes, hey, what's in my head is just in my head. They get that what they know isn't what everybody else knows. It's this huge breakthrough, realizing other people have their own separate thoughts and feelings and secrets. Let's walk through a classic example to see how this works. Picture this. A girl named Susie puts a chocolate bar in the fridge. Then she heads outside to play, okay? While she's gone, her mom comes along and uses the whole chocolate bar to bake cookies. A little while later, Susie comes back inside and she wants her snack. So here's the million-dollar question. Where is she going to look for first? For us, the answer is obvious, right? She's going to look in the fridge. Duh. Why? Because that's the last place she saw it. She doesn't know what we know. But see, a really little kid, one who hasn't developed theory of mind yet, they'd say she'll look for the cookies because they can't separate what they know from what Susie knows. And that right there, that ability to separate your knowledge from someone else's, that is exactly what makes lying possible. You can't trick someone unless you realize they don't know what you know. That first lie, it's not just a lie. It's proof that theory of mind has officially booted up. So once a kid has got these basic cognitive tools, what happens then? Well, now they've got to figure out how to use them out in the real world, their social and emotional worlds. I mean, it's one thing to have the toolkit. It's a whole other thing to learn how to use it with other people. And that's the next huge step. And a skill like theory of mind, it's literally the foundation for our entire social lives. It's what lets you put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's how you develop empathy. It's how you make friends. It's how you learn to navigate all those complicated social situations. Basically, it's how you learn to read the room. This new social awareness also totally changes how a kid thinks about right and wrong. When they're little, it's all about them, right? Their motivation is simple. Avoid getting in trouble, or maybe get a prize. I'm not going to hit my brother because I'll get a timeout. Simple as that. But as they get older and their world gets bigger, that reasoning changes. It gets more complex. They start to get ideas about social order, about following principles, realizing that rules aren't just there to punish them, but they're there to help everyone. And their emotional world? Oh man, that's a whole other dramatic journey. You know the movie Inside Out? It's actually a brilliant way to think about this. For little kids, emotions are just huge. They're intense, they're chaotic, and they are totally in the driver's seat. But as we get older, our emotions grow up too. We start to develop what's called self-regulation, which is just the ability to understand our feelings and manage how we react. And let me tell you, that is a process that takes a long time. Okay, so this brings us to the big finale, the main point of all this. Why does it even matter to know about these 4 domains, the physical, cognitive, social, and emotional? The reason it matters so much is because none of them work on their own. They don't exist in a vacuum. They are all woven together. Think about it. A kid's physical skills. Being able to run and jump, that's what lets them play tag on the playground, which is social. That cognitive skill we talked about, theory of mind, that's what makes real emotional empathy possible. All those social chats they have, that's what skyrockets their language development. And learning to manage their emotions, that is absolutely essential for navigating social situations. It's all one big, dynamic feedback loop. And that is why this whole framework is so powerful. It lets us look past one single thing a kid does, whether it's throwing a tantrum, messing up their spelling, or, even telling a lie, and see the whole amazing, complicated process of growth that's going on underneath. It's never just about that one thing. It's always about the whole child. So I want to leave you with this question. The next time you see a kid having a tough time, or acting out, or maybe even telling you a not-so-great lie, take a second and ask yourself, what incredible, complex, and totally normal developmental leap might I actually be looking at right now?